What I aim to do today is to give you a brief overview of what the retail landscape is like in Nigeria, answer any of the questions you have, dispel some of the myths that people have about Nigeria, and hopefully, if Nigeria is right for you, it will be a location you choose to start up your business. So join me on this journey. Okay, so Nigeria, largest population in Africa, population of around 62% under 25 years old. GDP growing. It's been growing steadily for the last 5 years in Nigeria. I'm very proud to say it's the largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, and that's surpassing the likes of South Africa, Kenya, and Ghana. What do we know about Nigeria? Most people, if I ask them about Nigeria, they'll talk about the oil and gas industry, which is not far from the truth. They'll tell you about terrorism in Nigeria, Boko Haram, people killing each other. Tell you about corruption as well, money under the table and, deals not being, according to what we know, deals to be here in the UK. And a very crowded place, lots of people. And to be honest, there's a bit of truth in everything. Yes, we have one of the largest oil-producing nations, 10th largest globally, 7th largest in terms of gas, globally as well. Terrorism, it is a factor, but it happens in the north of Nigeria. So when you're looking at terrorism, it's a bit like the IRA bombs. That's what I like to compare it to. When we had the IRA bombs way back when, no one was saying, oh, is business still happening in London? Business was still happening in London, and very well. And it's the same thing as in Nigeria. Yes, we have the bombing up in the north of Nigeria, but where the commercial center is, Lagos, there is no terrorist activity that we're aware of. And I've lived there for 3.5 years so far. Crowded country, yes, population at about 170 million and still growing, but I like to say it's organized chaos. So you're not going to have a GDP that has been growing for the last 5 years if people don't know what they're doing. So it might be crowded, but it's organized and people are still doing very good business there. Corruption, yep, it does happen, but it happens anywhere in the world. If you're going to do business, you need to do your due diligence. You need to have your facts about you. And don't just think, oh, because it's Nigeria, I can do what I want. It's not going to happen. You still need to do the necessary research, as always. There's another side to Nigeria that I like to just use as key facts when I do such presentations as this. And Virgin Atlantic, they said that Nigeria is one of their most popular and profitable routes. And that's globally, right? So the average Nigeria, when they travel, if you're traveling economy class, you're allowed two luggages, right? 25 kilograms of luggage. The average Nigeria will buy another 2. Okay, so that's one Nigerian traveler taking almost 100 kg of load back to Nigeria. 170 million people, we can do the maths with that. Champagne, one of the biggest consumers of champagne outside of Nigeria. Now, Nigerians, there is that kind of class, yeah? So if you're rich in Nigeria, you're very, very rich. If you're poor in Nigeria, you're very, very poor. And the rich in Nigeria like to pop bottles of champagne. And so that's why they're one of the biggest consumers of champagne. Thomas Pink, 3rd largest spenders on Thomas Pink shirts. Now, it's not just Thomas Pink. It's around all the luxury brands you can think of. Hugo Boss, you name it, they're out there, doing really good business. And why are they doing good business in Nigeria? Because there's money in Nigeria. But you just need to take time to really understand the market and do your due diligence. So those are just a few facts, that one would really have to compare. When you look at what's going on here, compared with some of the facts here, you have to really decide, am I being told the full truth about Nigeria, or is what is reported in the media just something that sells, basically? Bad news travels better than good news. Now, I don't want to just say that Nigeria is perfect and everybody should come to Nigeria. That'd be far from what I'm trying to advocate here. But what I am trying to do is to give you a balanced picture of the reality of Nigeria. It works for some people. It doesn't work for all. right? So it's important that everybody has a good understanding of what can work for Nigeria for themselves and then make an informed decision as to whether Nigeria is right for you or it's not. I think the problem is when you don't have two sides of the story. So that's what I'm trying to give today, a good overview of the retail landscape in Nigeria. Now, Nigeria is relatively a young democracy. It's only 26 years old. Before that, we had military rule. And so trade in Nigeria, before that, and still considerably a lot now, has been very informal. So a bit of what you're seeing there, most people shopping outdoors in the market, you have the street traders, it's chaotic, it's busy, they're shouting, and people are making it happen. That's what the typical Nigeria will do, where they will do their shopping. But recently we have gotten that move to that modern way of shopping, what they like to call the mall culture. So most people are in malls in Nigeria now. It's the in thing of, I'm going to the mall to do my shopping, The first mall in Nigeria was opened in 2005. So as we can say, mall culture in Nigeria, only about 11 years old. So relatively a young environment. These are some of the malls we have in Nigeria. You can see here you have Ikeja City Mall, very big mall. You have the Palms in Lagos. You have Sedi in Abuja as well. And there's more to be coming as well in Nigeria. They say by 2018, they're looking to open another 30 malls in Nigeria. Right? So as the malls open, they need tenants, they need international companies and retailers doing business in there, so the opportunities are vast in Nigeria. So who's buying in Nigeria? Okay, Nigeria is still a developing country. The wealth in Nigeria is only in a few hands. I'm not going to deny that at all. But who's buying? Let's have a look at the people who's buying. You have the expats. So I told you a while ago about the figures in oil and gas, 10th largest producer in oil in Nigeria. So you have a lot of expats working in Nigeria. And when they work in Nigeria, they come with their families, they come with their children. And so those all stimulate wealth and need for retailers in Nigeria. You have the business traveler, who are used to certain needs and expectations of when you do business in Nigeria, their technological needs, that's all needed in Nigeria as well. You have the growing middle class, right? So that's the oil and gas industry and other industries as well, stimulating a ripple effect in Nigeria. If you're doing oil and gas, you also need your professional services. You need your bankers, you need your lawyers, you need your accountants. All these people are stimulating jobs and creating a growing middle class. And so as a result of that growing middle class, they have disposable income, and so they want to spend. So you have more people with disposable income looking for locations to spend their money. Not every Nigerian can just get up and travel and come to pure London and do their shopping. We need kind of retailers in Nigeria that can help. Then you have the repacks, and those are what we call Nigerians who are Nigerians, they've lived in Nigeria for a few years, then they've traveled away, maybe gone for educational purposes, some have gotten married, settled in the UK, in the US, and then decided, you know what, 6 to 7% GDP growth, I think I'm going back to Nigeria. So a lot of them are now coming back, and they're highly valuable to the commercial industry in Nigeria because they have the skills and they also recognize and know the culture. I always say, my colleagues sometimes laugh at me, Beverley, how do you cope in Nigeria? I was like, I've got Nigerians in my family. It's no brainer. I understand the culture, right? So there are a lot of repacks going back to Nigeria and doing really good business, and so is their appetite for shopping. They still want to maintain that standard of living that they've used to being in the UK or in the US or wherever they're located to. And then you have the aspirational shopper. And these are the Nigerians that, will save up their money and think, at the end of the month, I want to go to the mall. I want to buy something. I want to be seen to be wearing, I don't know, Hugo Boss shirt or a T.N. Lewin shirt. Lots of them there. So these are the people that, if an international retailer is coming into Nigeria, these are kind of going to be your target markets. I put this slide up to basically give an overview of retailers in Nigeria, broken down by food, health and beauty, fashion and luxury. So in food, you have Spar, Park and Shop, ShopRite, Goodies. Most of them are South African. South Africans are doing lots of good business in Nigeria. Ibano is the Nigerian shopping market. A lot of people go there. It's based in Lekki. In beauty, you have a mixture of South African and Nigerian beauty outlets. But MAC has been in Nigeria for the last 3 years and doing really good business. I think they opened up their 3rd store in the last 3 years in Nigeria and looking to grow further. So doing really big business there. You have fashion brands like Nike, Adidas, Tommy Hilfiger, Pierre, all of them are out there. And then UK brands, T.N. Lewin, Grosvenor Shirts, Mango's out there, I know it's EU, and the luxury end of the market as well. So you can see there's a right range of outlets in Nigeria, but what you don't see is a lot of UK retailers. And that's what Nigerians are calling out for. They would love a Marks and Spencer's out in Nigeria. You know, it just makes sense. You know, just get all your underwear and all your stuff. You don't need to shop and come back, you know, with your suitcases full. It'd be lovely if they had Marks and Spencer's, for example, out there, or a big departmental store. So there's significant opportunities for UK retailers, and one might ask the question, and I'm sure it will come up later, well, why aren't they out there? And we'll get onto that a bit later on. Looking at how Nigerians shop, over here, I was over here in Christmas and it was brilliant. I didn't need to leave my house. I just did all my Christmas shopping on the internet. It's fantastic. Not so in Nigeria. Although Nigeria is the largest mobile market in Africa, 148 million people have a handheld mobile phone now on their phone, there's still that kind of skepticism of actually doing business online. You know, so one of the case studies is Jumia. Now, Jumia is an online retailer. They model themselves around Amazon, so selling everything from electronics and clothes and so on. But Nigerians are still very skeptical. How do I know I'm going to get my goods? Because it used to be a cash economy. Everything you pay for is cash. You know, money in your pocket. If you don't have the money, we're not taking it. So how do I know I'm actually going to get my goods when I put my details into this system? And how do I know it will actually come? So this perception, online retailers had to get around that. And how they got around that is payment on delivery. Something that we wouldn't even consider here. You know, you want your goods on Amazon, you put in your details, and you're expecting 3 to 5 days. In Nigeria, you do payment on delivery. So when it comes, they can inspect it. I can see it, I can try it on. Oh, I can touch it, it's real. I'll pay for it. Okay? So it's just a different mindset. If you're coming into Nigeria and you're thinking, oh, the best way for me to come is online, think about the Nigerian mentality. Think about some of the issues and some of the perceptions. We talked about corruption earlier on that still exist in Nigeria. It's not just international companies. Nigerians have it within the Nigerian community as well. How do I know I'm going to get that product? You know? So you have to think about adjusting your offer to suit the market. And it's the same in any other market you go to. This one, it might just be trust issues. In another country, it might be language issues. Entering the market, the most typical ways that international retailers have entered the market, in my experience in Nigeria, has been through distributorship. Okay, so it will be literally, I want to bring a brand, I don't want to name any names, but I'm bringing a brand in, and the distributor will say, look, I will buy it 100% up. You know, give me that ownership of representing your brand in Nigeria. I'll buy it. You just come in and help me do the fixtures and fittings, help me do the merchandising, help me to promote it. But the initial cost, customs, and everything else is the franchisee's problem. Okay? There are other models that work, joint ventures, subsidiaries as well, manufacturing licenses. But like I said, what I've seen most often in my experience is through distributorship. This company here is a franchisee company. It's called SmartMark, and they have done extremely good business in Nigeria. All these brands here is what they represent in Nigeria. And they're literally my number one go-to retailers if I want to ask any questions or just find out about, you know, the market at the time, because they have the experience. They've done it before. They understand the supply chain. They know how to work customs. You know, they know about branding and marketing. They've helped all these different companies, and they're all different in their own rights. You know, so I would promote them quite strongly because they just know how to work the market, literally. And they're not the kind of company that, like, oh, just come to us. Even if you just want to understand how business is done, you just want to know whether your product will work in Nigeria, they're a very good sounding board to go to. So SmartMark is a company that I would recommend. And if anyone wants their details or wants me to facilitate conversations with them, very happy to. One of their success stories is T.N. Lewin. So first T.N. Lewin shop was opened in 2013. in Ikeja, Nigeria. Now, 2016, they have 15 stores. 13 in Nigeria, 2 in Ghana. So you can just imagine the amount of demand for shirts in Nigeria. 15 stores is amazing. The other thing that is quite amazing is that they're number 2. The Ikeja store was rated number 2 globally. The first store, in terms of profitability, the first store was their flagship store. The second store was their store in Ikeja, Nigeria. So that just goes to show the spending power that Nigeria has to offer. Getting into Nigeria's retail space is not easy. I'm not going to lie, it's quite a minefield. I wish there was like an A to Z, do this, do that, and it equals money. It's not like that. It literally is about knowing people, sharing experience, seeing how it works, understanding the industry, and using UKTI. You know, UKTI is on the ground. If there's a company that you want to check out, I was talking to a couple of companies here. They were like, oh yeah, we're trying to enter the market, but we're not too sure about the distributor. I was like, well, come to UKTI. You know, we can actually go and meet the distributor, talk to them, you know, see whether they actually exist in the first place. So you really need to use intermediaries, and UKTI is a government agency, so we have no kind of vested interest. It's not our thing. We're working for Her Majesty. So, you know, we need to be kind of shown to be honest and uphold integrity. So I would advise UKTI as your first stop, and then we can also recommend you to lawyers. We can also recommend you to, you know, accountants that we've worked with in the past. You know, it just helps to ease that transition into the Nigerian market, because it's not an easy market. It's rated 124 in terms of ease of doing business in World Bank statistics. So it's not for everybody, but if you have the right intermediaries, if you have the right support, you can definitely do good business in Nigeria. And so here are some of the regulatory agencies, Nigerian regulatory agencies that you would need to know about. NOTAB, they regulate technology, acquisitions, franchisees as well. You have SUN, which is like the standards agencies. You have CBN, who obviously regulate the financial interest of Nigeria. There are other ones here, depending on your product. If you're into health, you definitely need to know NAFDAC, marketing. There's a list of agencies you need to work with also. Like with any market that you're going to, you must do your research. You know, I'm sure you've listened to other speakers before, and I'm not going to go and do the whole, you know, do your research, get to know the people, but especially in Nigeria, you need to do your due diligence. It's not an easy market. You know, people are hustling. You know, everyone's trying to make money. You know, so you know, I could meet someone tomorrow and say, "Oh, you need that? Don't worry, I'll sort it out for you," and they probably will. They probably will, but it doesn't mean that they're an expert in it. You understand? So you just really need to know who's who by working with intermediaries such as UKTI and the lawyers and the accountants that we would obviously introduce you to. So getting on to some of the reasons why, as I said earlier, UK retailers are not on ground as much as we'd like to see in Nigeria. And here's some of the challenges that Nigeria has. Property prices. If you're going to rent a shop, especially in a mall, very expensive. Really, really expensive. You're talking premium money. Power is another challenge in Nigeria. I was talking to one company and they were saying to me 70% of our cost is power. You know, because we don't have an efficient national grid as you do here in the UK. The national grid at the moment just supplies enough power to power Birmingham. You know, so as a result of that, everybody has like a generator. Everyone's a king in their own industry. They have their own power, they have their own financial systems. They sort it all out themselves. You know, so power is a really, really big cost to anyone wanting to do business in Nigeria. Qualified workforce, really a challenge in Nigeria. Just getting the right staff that actually understand what an international company or international shopper would want is a major challenge in Nigeria. And that's why I was saying earlier, the repats, as I like to call them, are very hot property because they've lived abroad. They understand what, you know, the standards are, and they also know how to flex it, you know, in terms of making it adaptable in Nigeria. Really hot property at the moment. In fact, I had someone just said, "Oh, I only want to employ repats," which causes a bit of tension, you know, in Nigeria. But I can understand that because the qualified workforce, especially if you're you've taken all the time and energy to enter the Nigerian market. You've invested a lot. You don't want it to be messed up, by staff that are not actually willing to learn or willing to actually, implement what you stated for them to do. So it's a huge challenge in Nigeria. Logistical challenges as well. These are some of. It's a bit of an exaggeration, this picture, but I mean, logistical challenges are quite bad in Nigeria, and they add to the cost of doing business in Nigeria. Other challenges we have, the downturn in the oil industry. I mean, it's not just a Nigerian problem, it's a global problem as well. Devaluation of the Naira. Oh, sorry, spelling mistake there. Devaluation of the Naira, the huge challenge in Nigeria, and then restriction in Forex as well. So once you make your money in Nigeria, because the Naira has been devalued so significantly as well, they're trying to protect the value of the Nigeria. So as a result of that, you can't repatriate the money you've made, your Forex you've made so easily. You need to have certain exemption forms, and that's just for a limited period only until the Naira comes back up. But it's a current challenge now in Nigeria that we're having to lobby the government quite hard on. So those are some of the challenges, but I mean, my final slide is this one, and I like to say that Nigeria is not for everyone, right? And if you're coming into Nigeria looking for a quick buck, it's not going to work for you because it needs to be a long-term investment, okay? Nigeria, if you look at GE, they've been in Nigeria for 40 years and still investing in Nigeria. 40 years is not a small amount of time. They're actually setting up a manufacturing plant in Calabar at the moment. That's taking them 5 years. That's no income, but investment, and then they'll start, manufacturing and fixing oil and gas equipment that they use for the industry. That's a company that's saying, look, we're committed to Nigeria. Hybrid College as well, are also in Nigeria, investing in vocational courses as well. So things like, sewing of garments, things like use of IT, things like, fixing your car. When I first moved to Nigeria, I was like, oh, can I not go on Gumtree and just, rate and see where I can buy or get the best mechanic? It doesn't work like that. You've got to know someone who knows someone, and then you then get your mechanic. It's hard for someone who's moving over there. You're just like, we have the net. Why can't we just utilize it? So the skills are definitely lacking in Nigeria, and so that's why colleges like Hybrid are doing extremely good business, because if it's anything from like the creative industry right the way through to a mechanic, they're right on the ground training people, getting them certified, instilling confidence in the workforce, and so that when international companies come in, they have a developed workforce that they can work with, recognized qualifications as well. And then you have other companies like Mace. Mace are the construction and consultancy company that built Heathrow Terminal 5. They've been in Nigeria for a number of years now, doing fantastic business, working directly with state governments like Lagos State, Calabar as well, and helping them develop their infrastructure. Now, these are very expensive investments, right? So you're not going to come to Nigeria for a quick win. They're there for the long haul. But definitely, if they toll a road going from, I don't know, let's say Lagos to Abuja, they're going to make their money back no end, because of the amount of people that want to be moving from Lagos to Nigeria and vice versa. So it's definitely a long haul journey.